I'm the Tipsy Psychic, and today, we're going to talk about auras again. So we've learned a little bit about auras, and then we learned how to see auras, and now we're going to learn about the symbolic meaning of an aura's color. So colors are very symbolic, and when you see an aura, a lot of the time it manifests in color, layers of color. I always say listen to your gut, listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, because everyone does things differently. I don't like to follow things by the book, but having guidelines is helpful and practical, especially if you're still developing your psychic powers, your psychic intuition. I'm going to tell you a little bit what each color represents, and then you can decide for yourself if that works for you and come up with your own interpretation. But I hope you guys have been practicing. So black, although this is not a color, any type of black really is usually seen as some kind of void or something negative or bad. So if your overall aura is black, it doesn't mean you're a bad person, but it could be there's an ailment, something that is really bothersome, or your intentions are evil, or your intentions or your feelings are bad. So you really gotta use your intuition to interpret that. It can symbolize the hatred you have for something or someone. And depending on your chakras, we didn't really get into that, it can also mean illness. So yellow is very cliche. It's cheery, smiley. If you have a yellow aura, you're probably very upbeat, bright person. It can also mean optimism or feeling prideful and confident. Blue has always had to do with calming. It has to do with communication, intelligence, someone who is imaginative and idealistic. If you have a white aura, think of wedding dresses. White always has to do with purity, being innocent. It's often associated with virginity. So I'm not saying if your aura is white, you're necessarily a virgin. Brass has to do with someone who is very intelligent, but they need work. It's an off color. They could be golden, but instead they're kind of off. It's brass. So they usually kind of are on a journey. They need to learn a lesson, or they're kind of in the works, you know? They haven't figured out who they actually are, and they aren't acting like who they actually are yet. Violet has to do with creativity, someone who is very intuitive. And often when someone is inspired, it reflects violet. Brown has to do with down-to-earth people, someone who is hardworking and motivated. Tan is a quiet person, someone who is shy and who kind of keeps to themselves. Fuchsia has to do with someone who is very high-spirited, positive, and bright. Someone who is very self-aware and has lots of love. Someone who is silver, someone who's sly, clever. They're very good with people, reading people. They're good at the powers of persuasion and seduction. Gold represents someone who is successful and driven and has their eye on the prize. Red often has to do with someone who is very intense and angry. Someone who has a long way to go. They might still be finding themselves. Gray is someone who is an open book, but it can also indicate sickness or confusion. Purple has to do with pride and power, royalty, loyalty. They are important, dignified. They have very high standard. Green is someone who is very connected with nature, someone who is a healer. It can also indicate jealousy, as in green with jealousy. Pink has to do with pregnancy, love, happiness, fertility, you name it. Indigo. Oh boy, have you heard of indigo children? Yes, well, very intuitive. Someone who is gifted, very wise, beyond their years. Orange, a very sexual, vibrant, alluring personality. Ivory is kind of like brass. It's someone who isn't completely pure, someone who isn't completely honest. They haven't figured out how they feel yet. Maroon has to do with strength, someone who is powerful, someone who is stable. Magenta is someone who makes an impact. They make a very strong impression on people, and they're very hard to forget. They're a natural leader. Whether they know it or not, they have a destiny. Thank you so much for watching. When you first start seeing auras, I mentioned this in the other video, you'll probably start seeing a clear layer. But over time, as you practice, you'll start to see colors. But with practice, you'll decide whether these colors mean something different in your eyes. So this is kind of what it means for me. Let me know what your thoughts are on all this. Bye!